buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos a esta presentación que cordialmente nos hace EBSCO a través de IEEE. Gracias a Tomás Jebeck. Bienvenido, welcome. This is your home.
Gracias.
Tom Jebeck, quien va a ser el presentador de la cuestión de los artículos, la elección de una revista, el impacto que pueda tener esta revista para todos los profes. También por las redes nos están siguiendo. A Roberto Sánchez, que nos va a hacer el favor también de EBSCO, acompañar la presentación de Tom, y al licenciado Julio Ibarra Martínez, jefe del Departamento de Biblioteca Digital de Rectoría General para toda la UAM. Pues bienvenidos. Le pediría a Roberto que nos hiciera favor de hacer una presentación más formal de Tomás Jebeck. Brother, you are Mexican.
Gracias, maestro Juan. Buenos días a todos. El principal objetivo de esta reunión es que Tom nos comparta algunos tips, algunas estrategias para ayudarles a ustedes a publicar más y aprovechar todas las herramientas que tiene IEEE, digamos en el sentido hacia autores, ¿no? La UAM tradicionalmente ha suscrito los contenidos de IEEE para que ustedes puedan consultarlos, investigar, apoyar todos sus trabajos, pero también está la otra parte de ustedes como autores y como miembros de lo que es IEEE, que es una sociedad sin fines de lucro, ¿no? Entonces también Tom se encarga un poquito de promocionar esta parte, la asociación que es IEEE, para ayudar a profesionales en ingeniería, en cualquier ingeniería, a vincularse, participar en congresos, hacer networking, etcétera, ¿no? Entonces también pueden inclusive preguntarle en ese sentido, tanto la parte de la asociación como en lo que un poquito se va a enfocar en esta presentación, que es la parte de publicar, ¿ok? Tom tiene una larga trayectoria, ha sido bibliotecario académico de una universidad en Estados Unidos, pero también ha trabajado en corporativos y ahora está apoyando a IEEE para promocionar los recursos y sobre todo su mejor utilización en las unidades académicas, ¿ok? Julio, no sé si quieres añadir algo. Creo que tú vas a presentar al final.
Sí.
Ok. Entonces, Tom, you can start.
Okay. Wonderful.
Gracias.
Buenos dias. Thank you very much for having me here on your campus this morning in beautiful Mexico City.
Closer.
Closer? Okay. So I'm a IEEE staff member from California, so it's very nice to be spending the week here with you in Mexico. I'm going to get started with my presentation. For those of you that are streaming or online, I will be providing the slides to go along with the presentation and recording. So we only have an hour today. So I did a little bit of survey in the room to begin to get an idea of what's of most interest, because this presentation could be 2 hours. So we're going to focus on 3 out of 6 areas, and if we have time, we'll talk about the others. So I'm going to get into that in just a minute. Before I get into the actual publishing, I do want to say a few words about IEEE. In the room, is there anybody who does not know who IEEE is? And I think Roberto just said a few things about IEEE, but is there anyone who's not familiar with IEEE? Everybody knows IEEE? Okay. Just very quickly then, IEEE is the world's largest professional association, over 500,000 members in 160 countries. Most people know us as a membership organization where you can do networking with your colleagues, attend over 2,000 conferences a year that are sponsored by our 39 different societies. That are all specialized in different areas of technology. So you can find within your specific organization on your area of expertise. We're a nonprofit, so we very much believe in using technology to help our communities and the world in general. And the reason we're here today is to talk more about publishing and our digital library. So you have access to the IEEE Explore digital library on your campus as a subscription provided by your library, so you can search and read and download full text all of the technical information in our library. It's about a third of the world's technical information. Go ahead on that. So over 7 million documents, about 3/4 of that are conference papers where you're going to find more of the leading edge research on new topics that are held every year. And as I said, there's 2,000 conferences a year, so many specialized conferences with papers on topics. We have then about 20% of the content is journal articles from over 210 journals that are published by our different societies. And there are new journals added every year, so there's always new topics, new areas of research that we add to the library. We also have some ebook collections and e-learning opportunities. I believe your university has one ebook collection, so you have access to about 97% of everything that's in the digital library. So, we talked about that. So, just real quickly, this is our Explore Digital Library homepage. Is there anybody in the room that has not used Explore? No? Nobody? You don't use? Okay. So this is our homepage of our Explore Digital Library. Very happy to show every 3 months we highlight very highly acclaimed articles or authors, and this month, just a week ago or so, we added one of your colleagues here from Mexico. So a professor from Universidad Adama San Luis Potosí. So you're very well represented in Mexico with an author right on our homepage. So he's doing some very important research. So just a little bit about how you use Explore, because that can help you know where to publish. So these are some of the journals that you read most, all of the campuses. So IEEE Access, which is our open access journal that's multidisciplinary. So a lot of articles about all kinds of applications of technology across fields. You also do a lot of reading in transactions on magnetics, of the transactions on visualization and computer graphics and industrial electronics. And then you do read a lot of conference papers from IEEE Engineering in Medicine and Biological Society. So just a little bit about where your interests typically lie. I want to say a little bit about why publishing with IEEE is beneficial to you. So first of all, we are very highly ranked by external third-party citation rankings and different metrics for impact factors. So based on the latest, we are in the top quartile for many different areas, including having 24 of the top 30 journals in electrical and electronics engineering, 23 of the 30 top journals in telecommunications, 5 of the 10 top journals in computer science, information science, 9 of the 20 top journals in artificial intelligence. So just to give you an idea, we're leaders in many different fields. So when you publish with us, you're going to have a good readership with a reputable publisher. We have been a trusted voice in technology and engineering since 1884. We've been around 141, going on 42 years. So we've been around for a long time. Our journals are very highly ranked and respected and known as having a very rigorous review process. We have over 6 million visitors to Explore a month. So that means that when you publish with us, a lot of people are going to see your research. And then more importantly these days is we also work with different AI platforms and search engines like Google Scholar, Google ChatGPT to provide our metadata so that when you're using those external tools, you're also going to find our content there. So we have very broad reach as far as people finding your research. Yeah, I think I covered everything there. So a few more words about your university and your relationship of your publishing with us. So this is one of your most published and most highly cited authors from the university. So I don't know, does anybody know this gentleman? Okay, good. So it's you. Well, welcome. So you have a very highly regarded author here, and everybody who publishes an article with IEEE automatically has an author profile created. I'm going to talk about how to do that. So yeah, we have a very distinguished guest here today, and hopefully you can offer some suggestions on publishing since you're very much more experienced than me. So that gives you a little bit of idea. You can see how highly cited he is and how many publications he has published just with us, and I'm sure with other publishers as well. And then these are the journals that you publish the most in. So IEEE Access is a very popular journal to publish in because it has such a big audience and it talks about all kinds of different topics and technology. So you publish a lot there, and also in selected areas of communication. And then these are just some of the topics that you typically publish on. So just a little bit of an idea about your relationship with publishing on the campus. So I'm going to jump into the actual presentation now. As I said, we did some voting at the beginning, and the top rated choices were actually the first three things. So we're going to go in order here. So your top choice was publishing choices, followed by peer review, and then paper structure. So I will cover all of that the best I can today. I'm going to say a little bit about submission guidelines, specifically about AI, or you'll probably have questions about that. That's always the top question. And then there's a lot of other resources and materials about promoting your research that you'll get in the slides. And I will be talking about the resources throughout as well. So you have all that for your reference. Before I start, the number one resource I want you to know about is the IEEE Author Center. So this is a website that's free to use. It has a wealth of resources for you as an experienced or a new author. Either for conference papers or journal articles. There's all kinds of tools here that you can use for free. I'm going to talk about some of those tools. This is where you would find them. And it also has a lot of the information that I'm going to discuss. It's got some videos, so very good resource if you're thinking about publishing. And even though we talk about IEEE tools and resources, it's pretty applicable to any publisher. And then before we go on, I want to mention our newsletter. This is published every 2 months. So it's a good thing you can subscribe and you can get updates on new tools, new tips and tricks, new resources that are available to you, some articles about being an author. So, okay. Let's get into publishing choices. I don't think I mentioned it. Please feel free to ask questions as I go. I'm very happy to just have a discussion with you as well. So when you are thinking about publishing, probably one of the most important decisions you need to make is early on. It's very helpful to know what journal you want to publish for, because then you can write specifically for that journal, and you can use the tools that are provided by that journal to assist you. So it really helps streamline your work a little bit and provides a little bit of a workflow. So obviously, we talked about this already. The reputation of the publisher is very important. You want to publish with someone who's got a good reputation of having solid scholarly articles and reputable research. You want to look at those journal quality factors and ratings. So there's a variety of different outside organizations that provide these ratings, and we make those available to you on the Explore digital library. So I'll show you this. When you take a look at the journal, it'll say right at the top what the different impact factors are. So that will tell you a little bit about the reputation of the journal. You want to make sure that it's indexed, which I talked about already, so that it's available on other discovery tools outside of our platform. And of course, you want a platform like ours that gets a lot of usage, has a lot of viewers per month. You want a journal that's got a rigorous and well-respected peer review process. That's very important as part of the scholarly communication ecosystem. I'm going to talk about that as well. And I already mentioned the platform having a lot of viewers. So I'm going to talk mostly about publishing a journal article, but I do want to say a few things about conference papers. So a lot of times we have a question, what's the difference between a conference paper and a journal article? So a conference paper is typically for research that is in process. So this is something that you're working on, you go present it at a conference, you get feedback, you get maybe new ideas about a direction to take your research, you might make some changes, so it's part of the evolution of your research. A journal article is a complete finding. So you have finished your research, you have findings that you are sharing, and you're discussing why it's important and the implications. Okay, so that's the difference. It's a completed research project with findings and conclusions. So there are some things to consider when you're trying to decide if you want to write a journal article or a conference paper. So with a journal article, as I mentioned, we have 210 journals. So you want to look, do we have a journal that fits your research area, your topic? There are going to be less topics for journals than there are for conferences. So conferences can be much more specialized. So if you are doing some very cutting edge new research, a conference might be the better venue because it's a specialized audience. So you want to look at who are the audiences of conferences versus journals. You want to look at who reads the journal, what types of topics they publish on. But the important thing for a conference is you typically have to go to the conference to present your paper in person. Things are a little bit different. There are some hybrid conferences now, so you always have to look at the conference organizer to see what their requirements are. But that is the big distinction, is that if you're going to present a conference paper, you have to be available to go and travel and have time in your calendar to go. So we do support that evolution of research that I talked about. So we're very much interested in you evolving your research. So you might start with a workshop where you're getting ideas that you turn into a conference paper and that you then turn into a journal article. The important distinction a lot of people ask is also what between a conference paper and a journal article is there needs to be a difference. You can't just present a paper at a conference and then go submit it for a journal. So a journal article, the rough guideline is should be 60% different and new than any other previous work that you've published. And a conference paper is considered a publication. So if you're going to present and then do a journal article, you want to evolve that conference paper with at least 60% new findings, new research, new conclusions, okay? So when you want to pick a journal, there are things that you want to do. So typically I recommend that it's important to select a target publication, or maybe 2 or 3 that you're looking at. And then look at the references in your own research. That would help you to decide, obviously, if you want to publish, you're probably going to publish in some of the journals that your own references have published in. You might talk to colleagues, supervisors, other people in your field for their recommendations of what might be a good venue for your research. And then you want to look at the aims and scope of a journal. And again, on our journal page, there's a screenshot here. On our journal page, you'll see right at the top there, we give the impact factors, and then underneath that, it talks about what kind of articles they publish, what topics they're interested in. So this is where you can look and get an idea about what the journal is interested in. And then we have, on that author center, we have a tool called a publication recommender. So you can put in your keywords, you can put in your abstract, you can put in any information about your article, and it will use machine learning to come up with some suggested IEEE journals that would be appropriate for your research. So you can put the keywords in, and then this is what you'll get. So in this example, it comes up with the transactions on signal processing newsletter, signal processing magazine. So it just gives the list of titles. It will tell you if it's open access or not. So open access is a whole other topic we could spend an hour talking about. So I'm just going to say a few words about open access. That is a consideration when you publish. So traditionally, when you published an article, it didn't cost the author anything, but then it was behind a paywall where you had to pay to read the article. And typically, at a university, the library would pay that for you, so it was available to you to read. A lot of journals and a lot of publishers are now doing what's called open access, where the author or the university pays to publish the article, and then anybody can read it without a firewall. So typically, if you publish open access, you're going to have a bigger audience. So if that's important to you, that might be the type of journal you want to publish in. But then you have to talk to your university, or maybe if your research was funded by another organization, they might pay that for you. So that's a whole other webinar that we could do. But this will at least tell you if it's open access or hybrid. If it's hybrid, you don't have to make a decision about how you want to publish until it's actually finished the entire review process and is ready to be published. If it's open access, fully open access, then you know there's going to be payment at some point. So it'll also give you the impact factor and then the time to publish. So that can be really important too, because every journal has a different timeline. So some can be quick, like Access that I talked about is about 6 weeks from the time you submit your article to publication. They publish every month. It's very rapid. Other publications might only be quarterly, so it might be 20 weeks or more. So if that's a consideration for you, we give you that information on how long it typically takes to publish. So this is an example. If I click on the selected topics in signal processing, it gives me, again, the aim and scope, a lot of that same information that's on the journal page as well. So that will help you pick what publications. So a final word about impact factors and picking your publication. That's not everything. So a lot of times there are new journals that are on really new emerging topics. Because they're new and they don't have a lot of articles, they're not going to have as high of an impact factor. So that might be a more appropriate journal for you. So don't be discouraged if it doesn't have a good high impact factor. It just may be that it's too new. And there are lesser known journals that might be much more relevant to your field and have a much more specialized audience. So that's a consideration. You could look at other things too, like on Explore at the bottom, we tell you how often journals have been read, how often the articles have been read, and you could look at other things like patent citations, so in addition to references. So any questions about picking a journal and how you go about that? How are we doing? Okay. So let's talk a little bit then about peer review. So peer review, a lot of people have questions about this because it's kind of a black box. It can be intimidating to people. So peer review is defined as the critical assessment of manuscripts submitted for publication by experts who are not part of the editorial staff. So this is really a symbiotic relationship between the publisher and the author. And the thing that I want to sort of highlight is this is beneficial to both sides. So for the publisher, the reviewers assure that, and these are volunteers, I should mention, these aren't paid, these are volunteers, other experts in your field, your peers. They read your article and they make sure that it's valid, that it's important, that it's novel and new, that your research actually supports your conclusions. So they make sure they do that quality measurement to make sure that it's appropriate to be published. But they are also doing a service to you as an author because they're providing feedback on your article. So they have a fresh set of eyes. They're looking at things a little bit differently, maybe at a higher level. They might see things that you might need to clarify. They might have some questions that help you make your research a little bit more sound. So they're providing feedback to you to improve how you communicate and conduct your research. So it helps you as an author and as a researcher as well. So that, it works together. So how does the review process typically work? And I think this is pretty common for most scholarly publishing. It will change slightly from publisher to publisher and journal to journal, but typically there's an editor-in-chief. So when you submit an article or a manuscript, it goes to the editor-in-chief. There's some automated things that go on to check automatically for plagiarism, for AI, to see if sometimes there are people who publish fraudulent research, so they get put on a list. So we automatically know if there's an author who's done that. Once it's past that, if it's in scope, if they feel like your article is relevant to the publication, it will be assigned to an editor or an associate editor who manages the whole review publication process. So that person will then assign the article to at least 2 experts in your field, sometimes more, but a minimum of 2 who are experts, volunteers, who will thoroughly read your research and they will provide detailed feedback to you and to the editor. So the editor will then make a recommendation to the editor-in-chief. Typically, it's accept the article, it's revise the article and resubmit it or reject. Okay? Has anyone here had an article accepted the first time they submitted it? No? Okay. That's extremely rare. Okay. So don't think if you submit an article, it's going to get accepted. The very best case is that you get a revise and resubmit. That is really great news. Okay. Of course, it means more work for you, but it means that they think your research is promising and it's interesting and they'd like to publish it. Okay. If you get a reject, then that just means either they don't think it's relevant, it's not developed enough, or maybe you just didn't follow the procedures and guidelines. Okay, and I'm going to talk about what helps. What do editors and reviewers look for? So these are the things they want to make sure that your article is in scope. So obviously, does it fit what the topics they publish? That's probably one of the main reasons the article gets rejected on submission is because it's not relevant to the journal. And that's why it's good to pick up front and write for a particular journal. Is it valid? So does your research methodology is it sound, and does it support your conclusions in your research? So, or maybe they found errors, or maybe they think it's fraudulent in some way. Okay. Is it novel? So is it original research? They don't want to publish something that's already been researched and published. So it has to be something new and different than what's been previously published. And then is it important? So it's not just is it new, but does it matter? Okay. Is it going to lead to further additional research and discoveries, or is it going to have an implication for tech, for industry, or is it going to have some relevant application in society? Okay. Is it clearly written? So is it understandable? Is it easy to read and comprehend? And then finally, I mentioned, compliance. Does it fit the requirements for formatting and all of that as far as how you structure the article? So the most important things, again, novelty. This has to be. I talked about this already. Does it articulate a new idea? Does it address something that's new and important problem? Is it something that's not been described in previous research? So let's see, new tools. Maybe you've created a new tool that you want to talk about. Maybe you have new research methods that you've discovered. So that could be a thing. New applications. I talked about that. And then also interdisciplinary is also really interesting these days. So technology, engineering, everything, biomedicine, medicine, it's all converging. So interdisciplinary articles typically are very interesting to people. So how do you take engineering and fix it or apply it to medicine or medical devices and all of those types of things. So why do editors reject papers? Obviously, it's the opposite of why they accept papers. So it's not a good fit for the publication. Maybe your research is not, it's inconclusive. They don't believe that your research supports what you say. It's not written well enough, and it needs major rewriting to be understandable. It's not a big enough problem, those same types of things. So when you do get a decision, and this is assuming that you get a revise and resubmit decision, there's a few things that you need to consider. If your paper is rejected, you are perfectly free to go submit it to another journal or to another publisher. I didn't mention that, and we're not going to get to it in the guidelines section, but it's considered ethical, or I should say it's considered unethical to submit your article to more than one publication at a time. So once it's been rejected, then you can submit it somewhere else, okay? If it has been accepted as far as revise and resubmit, first of all, thoroughly read what the editor says and what the reviewers say. Again, they're doing it to help you, so don't take it personally. Don't be discouraged if there's a lot of work that's going to be involved. The fact that they're getting back to you means they think your research is interesting and valuable, okay, and they want to help you get it published. So look at the instructions and the deadlines. So sometimes they might have a special issue and they want to publish your article in that special issue. So maybe they'll tell you, okay, we're doing a special issue in 4 weeks. Can you revise and resubmit before then? Okay, so look at all those considerations. Then next, determine if you want to proceed, okay? So make sure that all your co-authors are available to continue to work on the article, because it is important that all the authors continue through the entire process. So you can't submit an article and then resubmit with different or less authors. So everybody has to commit that they're going to continue to work on the revision. And do they have the time to do it? Okay. And then finally, when you're starting your review process, you want to very closely track who's managing the review, make sure you have your documents, everyone's working on the same version, you don't have problems with people writing different sections that aren't coordinated. And then finally, you're going to create a response to the reviewer document. This is very important, okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the response to the reviewer document, but before we do that, just a few tips for addressing the review. As I said, keep an open mind. These are constructive comments to help you. Remember, it is your job as an author to make your research understood. So it's on you to make it understandable, to use language that people understand. Write a very clear response, make sure you track all of the comments and how you responded to them. Be respectful, of course. Don't take it personally if they say something critical, and just be aware of any kind of ethical issues, like maybe one of the reviewers says, you haven't cited all their articles and they want you to cite their articles. That's considered unethical. Okay. So if that happens, which hopefully it never happens, you'd let the editor know. Okay. So you're going to create a response to reviewer document, and you're going to take every single comment and you're going to respond to it, and you're going to explain how you responded and exactly what you changed. And then if you decide for some reason that you're not going to make a change, you have to explain why. Okay? So this is one example of how you could do that, where you could color code. So in this example, the reviewer's comment is in red, your response is in green, and then exactly what you changed is in yellow. Okay? So you have to be very structured. This is another example where you do it as a table. Okay? So you have the reviewer comment on one side, and on the other side, you've explained exactly what you did or did not do. Okay? So that accompanies your document. So it's very important because they're going to look to make sure that you considered everything. And there are reasons why you might not want to make a revision. So you need to tell them why. Okay? So and then finally, before we get into paper structure, you can yourself become a reviewer. Has anyone in here been a reviewer for articles? Okay, we've got a few people, okay. So you can submit, all of our journal pages have a link to submit your name to become a reviewer. That can be really, really helpful to you as an author. So if there's a journal that is in your field, you could submit your name, they'll vet you, make sure that you are an expert, and then they'll give you articles to review. And that really helps you to understand the review process. It helps you to understand what editors and reviewers are looking for. So I encourage you to be a reviewer. It looks good on your resume too, to say that you're a reviewer. So it really can help you quite a bit. So, and you get to really understand and work on that side of publishing. So just something to think about as an author. Any questions about the review process? Yes?
It is that the peer review is very important in the process of accepting a paper to guarantee the good quality of
Yes.
the paper. However, it includes some bias and subjectivity in certain occasions or delay. In your opinion, how this process could evolve in order to be rigorous and at the same time be fair to the authors?
So how could it be, let me see if I understood. So how can it be rigorous, but...
And fair to the author, because if the process sometimes introduce bias.
Bias, okay, yes. Yes.
In the answer of the...
Right. Okay, so the question is, how does the review process handle when there's bias and subjectivity
How it can be
improved? Okay. So, that's a good question. I don't know that I have a good answer to that. So it really depends on the reviewers and the editor. Hopefully the reviewers are well edited. If you feel that there is bias or some kind of subjectivity, that's something, you could bring up with the editor. And that's something that you can also address in your response. The response is part of a communication between you and the publisher. So I don't know, this is probably not a good answer. I know that people have also asked, sort of related to that, is how AI tools might be used in the review process to maybe take some of that bias or subjectivity out. So I'll answer sort of that question now too, which is, at this point, IEEE does not use any AI tools in actual reviews. We do require that the expert review it and provide their feedback, but there could be ways, and we're always looking at new tools and new ways that maybe AI could help with that question. So, but I'm gonna make a note of that, and maybe I can get you a better answer and share it with everybody as well, okay? So, okay, any other questions about review process? Let me just make a note of that real quick. Okay, so paper structure, this is a little bit technical, but it is very important. I'm gonna try and get through it in the next 15 minutes, or have questions for it too, and talk a little bit about AI. So every paper is gonna be structured basically the same way, okay? So a few things to think about before you begin. So very high level, before you start writing a paper, think about the why, what, and how. So this is more of like the story that you want to tell with your research. So, you know, why are you doing your research? What was your research? How did you do it? Okay? And then try and get organized in a way that makes sense to you. So that really helps. Everybody has a different way of organizing how they think and do research, but come up with something that works for you. As we already talked about, pick the right journal, use the templates. So in the resources slides, and if you go to the author portal that I mentioned, you can look up your journal and download templates so that when you're writing, you're actually writing in the format for the journal. That will really save you a lot of time at the end, so you don't have to go back and reformat your document. So we provide those tools, those templates to you, and then really think about that, you know, that story that you want to tell at the high level. So every paper is going to have common elements, and most of the time they're actually even going to be labeled the sections in your paper. So it's going to have obviously a title, it's going to have authors, it's going to have an abstract, introduction, an approach or methodology section, a results section, a discussion, and then finally acknowledgements and references. Okay, I'm going to go through each section slide by slide. So I went ahead, I already talked about the templates and the tools. So this is just a screenshot. If you go to the Author Center and just search for tools or for templates, it'll take you through. You can download Word or LaTeX, whatever you use. So that's there. So, yes?
In order to access to all of these tools, we get a login?
No, it's just an open website. So the question was, do you need a login or anything for the Author Center? No, it's a free open website. If you just go to authors.ieee.org, it's there to use. Yep. Okay, so first of all, your title. Now the title can be very hard. The title and abstract, a lot of times you might want to do at the end. Or maybe you start with a title and an abstract and then you come back to it and change it. Okay? So the title you want to be descriptive but yet concise. So it can take a lot of work, it can take a lot of time. You want it to grab the reader's attention. Obviously think when you're doing research, you're scrolling a lot of search results, you want something that's going to stick out and look relevant and interesting. You want to try and answer the why read this, why read the article. Consider the keywords that a person would be looking for. I would say, you know, your title should have the 1 or 2 main topics or keywords in it, so people see that. And so, you know, it can be a little bit, you know, a lot of work to come back. So these are just 2 examples of what might be a better and a not so good title. So the first one's much more concise, much more easy to read. The second one's a little more wordy, just to give you an example. I'm going to give you some other examples too of good, like what's good and bad. And again, you're going to get the slides, so we'll provide all of this to you. Okay, the abstract should be a concise summary of your research, what you concluded, how you got the results. It should stand alone, meaning someone who reads your abstract knows what your article is going to be about if they read it. Okay, should be 250 words or less. And this is where you want to use more keywords. Okay, so you want to make sure that people can find your article using additional keywords. So this is really high level. This is what, when you're using a search engine, it's searching the title and the metadata or the abstract typically. Again, like I said, you might want to write an initial one and then come back and rewrite it when you've finished your research. Okay? So here's again a good example of what's a good and a not so good abstract. The main thing is the abstract should be first person, present tense. You want to, you don't want to actually describe all of the intricacies of the paper. You just want to describe the, what you're gonna be talking about in the article. So, and then this is a good example of how you might use keywords. So in this example, it's about deep learning. Okay, so deep learning is in the title and health informatics, but then you'll see we also have terms like we have data-driven models. Okay, so you want bigger terms and smaller, more specific terms. So data-driven models, artificial neural networks, semantic interpretation, predictive power. So those are all similar keywords that will help people find your article. And it makes it more interesting too, rather than just saying deep learning over and over and over again. Okay, so that's just an example. Next is going to be your introduction. So the introduction, and you'll see on the next page, the example, it's actually labeled introduction. It's typically 2 pages. It's a description of the problem that you researched, and it should move step by step through. This is where your literature review is very important. What is known about previous research on your topic, okay? So you put it in the historical context of all the research that's already been done, your hypothesis or overview of your results, and then how the paper is organized. So this is more of the what you're going to be doing and why, where it fits into the research that's already been done. So this is an example. You're going to talk about your goal, your motivation, and you're going to talk about the novelties. So that's like, why is it different? Why is it new from what was previously published? Okay, and again, you see it's labeled introductions. It's very structured. Okay, next is your methodology. Your methodology is a very precise description of how you did your research, how you did your data, how you did your analysis. Think of it as a recipe, like you're cooking. So anybody who reads your methodology should be able to reproduce your research, okay? Just like when you're cooking a recipe, you're creating the same dish. So this is very important. This is how they know, this is how other researchers know that your research is valid, that it's reputable, that it's solid and has a good foundation, okay? So the next section is your results and your discussion, and these are a little bit different. So the results basically summarize in a very objective way what your research says. Okay, it's very subjective. The discussion is more of the subjective interpretation of what your results said. So this is where you talk about why it's important or why it matters, what's new about it. So this is your interpretation. This is also the section where you want to use your graphs, your charts, your diagrams, okay? And those can be really important in your article too, because a lot of search engines will use the images, so that will help. And it just makes in search results, a lot of times they get pulled out, so you'll see those things in the search results. But this is the section where you're going to put all that information. What we're doing, okay. So a good example, you see again, clearly labeled results discussion, and we talked about this. So just a few last things about your conclusion then. A lot of people get confused a little bit between what's the abstract or the introduction and the conclusion. So the conclusion is where you bring everything together again. So you start with an introduction, an abstract, you talk about what you're going to do, in the conclusion you say what you did and why it matters. So brings it all together, it summarizes in much more clear, plain language what your key findings were. It puts it into the context again of the existing research. It explains maybe the limitations of your research. So maybe you studied a certain area, but you discovered maybe there's another area that needs to be have further research, or maybe there were some limitations. So you discuss that in the conclusion. You discuss what might be the next steps. So why how you would proceed with doing more research on the topic. So remember that the abstract is really for someone who has not yet read your paper and you're trying to explain to them why they should read your paper. And the conclusion is more of where you're putting your thoughts together, saying, so what? Why did this article matter? Why did the research matter? And how does it advance the field? Okay? Okay, so a few last words. Just, in general, always try and communicate clearly, concisely, using big words to make yourself sound intelligent is not going to help get your article read. So you want people to be able to understand it and continue. I suggest we typically publish in English, but I suggest for our native English speakers, have a colleague or a friend read your article. If you have writing services on campus, have them read the article. That will help so that when you submit it to review, your reviewers aren't focusing on the writing, they're focusing on the content. So use those resources that will help you. Try and keep it interesting, use an active voice. You just don't want to do a data dump, and as a researcher, it's hard to read an article that's boring and uninteresting. Yes?
Okay, there's two questions.
Uh-huh.
Try to do this. The third point, consider an English language editing service.
Yes.
Okay. This is, let's say, based on the grammar. I know there's a standard grammar, English or Spanish, but getting help from someone expert, grammar expert, from the United Kingdom and another from the United States. After your expertise, what do you recommend? I mean, is there a big difference when trying to match or trying to express? Because there are some very little differences between them.
Yeah. So I think, so the question was about using editing service, English language editing service, and just trying to do that sort of translation between how you say things in another language and how you do it in English. And specifically, I think where there might be an issue, so like a English editing service can help with regular English, but in technical publishing, there's a whole other technical language, and I think maybe that's what you're sort of talking about. So there are resources that are available to help with that. And I believe I have a slide in this, but IEEE does have courses, and again, these are for even English speakers, but there are courses on technical English, so for engineers. So those aren't included in what's in your subscription. Those are typically a course that you have to pay for, but you can pay for just a single course. They're online. There's some online courses you could take like an hour that would help. And then there's a full course with feedback that you can take. So those would be supplemental things that you could do. I can show you at the end how to find it, but there are specific courses you can take for technical English that would be a little bit more on top of an editing service. I don't know, does that answer the question?
Partly, yes.
Okay.
No, because at the same time you're learning language as well.
Right.
But at the same time, for example, in Spanish, there are technical and social technical language as well as English. But how after your work as a editor, when we want to translate or get help, an editor who is English native speaker, how can be selected? I mean, if he's from the United States or from Australia or from the United Kingdom or New Zealand, is there a big difference?
I don't know that there's a big difference between different English-speaking countries. I think it's more of just that there's a sort of a technical language around English. So, I know I had a master's degree in German and I had to publish in German, and there was a whole separate language around publishing, and doing literature reviews and things like that. So I think
There shouldn't be any difference.
yeah, there shouldn't be. It should be more of just that technical English. And like I said, that we do have courses, there are online tools that you can use for technical English that will help you. I know we're running up on time now. We want to try and finish up. But I did want to mention, since you brought this up, this is where AI can also be very useful. So I just jumped ahead to a few slides about AI. So it's perfectly acceptable to use AI tools to help you with spelling, to help you with grammar, to help with translations. So that's considered acceptable. I have some slides here about the use of AI. So this is an area that's changing every day. Everyone's adapting and learning new things. So we do have some guidelines. So I already mentioned we don't use AI in the reviews. So I mentioned that. As an author, if you use AI, it is acceptable in some cases. I'm going to show you a slide that talks about AI in the research process. The main thing I want you to understand is that it's very important to be transparent and disclose if you've used AI. Just as you would in your references, if you're talking about other people's research, you want to reference it and give it credit. You want to always let the editor know that you used AI and where and how. And sometimes you can even put that in the acknowledgments. So you might have a letter to the editor when you submit, and you could say, I used AI for grammar and English, or I used AI to help make some of my charts or graphs more visually compelling or something like that. You could say it there, but you can also put it in your acknowledgments. And here's two examples we have of how you can acknowledge the use of AI. So this is like your acknowledgments at the end where you might acknowledge contributions. You had a colleague review your paper for you and provide feedback. So you can do that there. You can also cite. So just like you would cite software that you used, you could cite ChatGPT or other AI tools. And then this is a good slide, and I'll wrap up with this. Okay. You just wanted to take a screenshot. We have a whole, PDF. So, and again, you'll get the slides. So this is a great chart from a scholarly article that I've got referenced there. If you want to go read this article, but this really gives a good overview of appropriate uses of AI in the research process. So you can help use it to generate ideas. You can help it analyze your data. You can help use it for the editing process. So just some things to think about. And then finally with AI, I'm just going to say one last thing. And there's a really good article in Inside Higher Education by an author named John Warner. So I'm going to sort of quote him here. He says, "Good practice must work in the absence of the tool." Okay? Which is a really good way to think about AI. So if you cannot do something or not come up with a conclusion on something without the tool, then it's not yours. Okay? So that's a good guideline. You don't own the topic if the tool created it and you couldn't create it on your own. So good practice is to know that you are the expert and the tools can help you in your process. They can help automate things. But if it's something that came from a tool that you don't know, then don't use it. Okay? So the tools can really only be used to help you to reinforce what you as an expert are putting out. Okay?
In order for the references, usually we use the APA standard, but is it for all of your papers? Is it gonna be with the IEEE?
Yeah, we have, so generally, so the question was, what format do we use for references in the references section of your article? We do have an IEEE format, okay? So some journals are gonna do things a little bit differently, so that's where the template helps, because the template will help put all your references in the correct format. But generally, they all use an IEEE format. Every version is, every format's a little differently. There are tools that will allow you to convert. If you are doing your research in Explore, you can download all the references into like a RIS format that can be easily imported into the proper format. So yeah, we do use an IEEE format. And when you go to, let me just quickly change here. Hold on.
For the template, now is standard that is
latex, yes. Typically latex is, but usually they will accept latex or, let me change this here. They will accept latex or Word if it's formatted in the right proper template. So, so here's an example of a journal page. So if I click on this journal, so this is where it talks about the aim and scope, it talks about the publishing fees. If you go to the About journal, it will give you a lot more information about the policies, the peer review. It'll take you to the manual for formatting. And then if we go to the author tools, let's say template, see if I can find it. Article templates, so you can go into your template selector, and this is where, let's say I'm going to do transactions, I'm going to do communications, I don't know, I'll just pick one, original e-search, so it gives you latex or Word, okay? And then the journal page itself will have submission guidelines that will take you to the whole journal separate outside. It will give you all the information about that journal. Okay, so for authors here, everything that you need to know. So every journal is going to be a little bit different, but you can find it from that journal landing page. Any other questions? Yes?
Your role, have you ever seen something mistranslated with AI?
Have I seen something mistranslated with AI? Oh, yes.
And how common is it? Because actually it's hard for us, like Spanish speakers.
Right.
Yeah, and actually syntax and grammar, there's a huge difference about syntax
Yeah.
and grammar and the way we express the idea.
Yeah.
It's actually very hard for us maybe to get a native speaker to help us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is very common for us as students to actually go to AI and say, hey, help me to translate this.
Yes.
And there's a lot
Yeah.
of problems in that process.
Yeah.
And actually, what do you recommend? It is easier for us to actually record so much help us, or trying to use AI, or maybe a little bit of mix?
Maybe a little bit of both. Maybe AI could help in the beginning, but this is where I would ask a colleague or maybe one of these writing services to review it. So, AI can really help speed things up, but even just when I'm doing, my own things, it changes the meaning of words based on how it arranges things in a sentence. So, I would say AI is probably better for translating something for you to read than to translate your content into another language. So I think that, the writing services would probably be, it would, regardless of what you do, you don't want to just use the AI, you want someone to look at it. So, yeah, who knows, a year from now, it could be a whole different story. So, but yeah, it's usually, they can help, but it's always good to have human eyes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You already told us that you will give us courses for technical English.
Yeah.
And would you maybe share a little bit for us?
Okay, let me see if I can find the slide here. So this will be in the resources section when you get the slides. Yeah, this is a lot, so let me see, it's hard to see. If it's not, I'm pretty sure it's in here. Maybe not. I will add a slide. I will add a slide for you, but just in general, if you go to Explore, if you go to your library website, they'll have a link to Explore, or if you just go to IEEE.org and then click on Explore up here, it'll take you to the home page, and then if you go to Browse Courses, I believe we can even find it right here. English for Technical Professionals. Okay, so there's a lot of different ones. So this is a 1-hour course. So it's not included in your subscription because you saw the red lock. So this is something you could pay for on your own. So it would tell you on here how much it costs. Let me see. Yeah, you would have to log in, I think. But it'll tell you the different options. So this is one. There's some other courses. Let me, and your EBSCO people can help too. So, yeah, yeah. So we'll add a slide or two about this for you, okay? But if you just go to courses, you'll find that English for Technical Professionals, just an hour online course to help you get started. Okay? Okay. Any other questions? I want to thank everyone. Hope you got some good information. My contact information and the EBSCO contact information is right here. So, so go ahead. You feel free to contact me if you'd like. If you have any questions, you have Alejandra here, who you can contact. She's here in Mexico City. And then you can also, we have an email alias for our authors if you have any other questions. Okay? Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias, estimado Dear. Tom. Thank you for your presentation.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, wow.
Obsequio.
Thank you.
Bienvenido. A ver cuándo lo tenemos por acá otra vez. You speak Spanish.
I know, I need to. I live in California. I should speak Spanish. I speak speak German.
Pues muchas gracias a la gente de EBSCO, a la IEEE por visitarnos, por estar con nosotros, y a todos los que nos acompañan, pues gracias por estar con nosotros. Desafortunadamente ellos tienen que irse volando a la ciudad de Puebla para hacer otra presentación por allá, pero les pido se queden con Julio Ibarra, que va a hablar sobre los acuerdos transformativos que tiene la universidad con algunos editores internacionales. Thank you, dear brother. Adelante, gracias.
Platicarles sobre este proyecto que tenemos en la biblioteca digital a nivel de toda la universidad, que son los acuerdos transformativos. Así que, pues, bueno, ya se va Tom, pero esperemos que este próximo año podamos cerrar también nuestro acuerdo transformativo número 15 con la IEEE. Muy bien, gracias. Pues bueno, no es para iniciar y poner un poquito el contexto de los acuerdos transformativos que nosotros tenemos en la universidad. Me gustaría pues iniciar cómo es esta parte de las publicaciones. Digo, ya ahorita revisamos toda esta parte del proceso editorial que se asemeja mucho a la IEEE con muchas otras editoriales con las cuales nosotros estamos publicando, pero cómo nosotros lo vemos desde un punto de vista de institucional y de autor y obviamente de biblioteca. Pues, ¿qué es lo que sucede? Pues nosotros partimos justamente con esta parte en el cual pues nosotros como universidades y los centros de investigación producimos el conocimiento, producimos la ciencia y pues ¿qué es lo que hacemos? Pues nosotros la enviamos a publicación con diversas editoriales, diversas revistas para su futura publicación. Sin embargo, pues ¿qué es lo que sucede? Que también esta revisión que nosotros tenemos en esta revista, es decir, la revisión por pares, pues también la hacemos nosotros. O sea, me refiero a personas que pertenecen a universidades y a otras instituciones a nivel mundial. De hecho, por ejemplo, aquí en la UAM tenemos un número muy considerable de revisores con las grandes editoriales. Hace unos 3-4 años hicimos un ejercicio con Elsevier y solamente de la UAM tenemos alrededor de 150 revisores. Bueno, eso fue hace 4 años. Yo supongo que ahora ya debemos de tener un número pues mucho más nutrido. Posteriormente, pues nosotros, ya que tenemos aprobado nuestro artículo, pues pasa ya a ser parte de la editorial, es decir, nosotros estamos cediendo los derechos para que puedan poderlas comercializar. ¿Y qué es lo que sucede? Que también nosotros como instituciones lo que hacemos es adquirir esta información, es decir, nosotros la producimos, nosotros la revisamos, se los damos al editor y esa misma información nosotros la estamos adquiriendo a través justamente de las bibliotecas, hace muchos años en formato impreso y desde hace 15 años a través de nuestra biblioteca digital. Y obviamente nosotros lo que hacemos como biblioteca, pues la ponemos a disposición de nuestra comunidad para que se pueda consultar y producir nueva ciencia. Por eso es que estamos como en este ciclo. Muy bien, sin embargo, mejor hace un poco más de 20 años, estamos hablando de unos 23, 24 años, a nivel mundial pues empiezan a surgir movimientos de acceso abierto, como el pronunciamiento de Budapest, en el cual pues bueno, se está ya transitando hacia el acceso abierto. Sin embargo, este acceso abierto pues empezó sin fines de lucro. Y fue tanta la presión que nosotros hicimos, me refiero como instituciones a nivel mundial por el acceso abierto, que también las editoriales comerciales pues empezaron a transformar su contenido también en acceso abierto, es decir, lo empezaron a liberar. ¿Y qué es lo que sucede? Pues al no tener ganancias por la suscripción de estas revistas o de estos artículos, por la compra de estos artículos, lo que empezaron a hacer es trasladarle el costo del acceso abierto justamente a los autores. En este caso, se les empezó a cobrar esa tarifa de publicación editorial llamada APC, que es el Article Process Charge, y nosotros estimamos que va la publicación de cada artículo, el costo de los $3,000 a los $5,000 es lo que tienen que pagar nuestros autores. Esto dependiendo de la revista y dependiendo también de la editorial. Ahora, por otra parte, pues nosotros a nivel mundial ya estamos muy encaminados hacia la parte de la ciencia abierta. En 2023, la UNESCO realizó las recomendaciones para que los diversos países que son miembros de la UNESCO puedan trabajar en su legislación sobre la ciencia abierta. Y justamente uno de estos 4 pilares que nosotros tenemos en la ciencia abierta se refiere al conocimiento científico abierto, en el cual, pues bueno, tenemos específicamente las publicaciones científicas o las publicaciones de acceso abierto. Entonces, pues la UNESCO está instruyendo justamente a que se puedan realizar las legislaciones necesarias en cada uno de estos países. ¿Y qué es lo que nosotros tenemos aquí en México? Pues ya una legislación bastante robusta, iniciando justamente con la parte de la Carta Magna, es decir, la ley principal de los Estados Unidos mexicanos, que es nuestra Constitución política, que en su artículo número 3, y en su reforma de 2019, habla justamente el derecho humano a la ciencia vía el acceso abierto. Tenemos otras leyes muy importantes que también nos rigen a nosotros como instituciones educativas, como es la Ley General de Educación Superior, que en 5 artículos pues habla sobre las políticas de promoción al acceso abierto. Y la más reciente, la Ley General en materia de humanidades, ciencias, tecnología e innovación, todavía la promulgó el CONACYT en 2023, en el cual en diversos artículos pues establece que cualquier investigación patrocinada por el Estado mexicano debe publicarse invariablemente en acceso abierto. Al momento nosotros en la UAM no tenemos todavía una legislación, se está trabajando ya para poder transitar hacia la ciencia abierta. Ahora, por una parte, pues ya vimos todo este momento que tenemos a nivel mundial, la parte de las leyes que pues ya nos están exhortando o inclusive pues obligando a que toda esta investigación se publique en acceso abierto. ¿Qué es lo que nosotros tenemos en la UAM? La gráfica que tenemos aquí son nuestra producción científica en Web of Science en los últimos 5 años, en las cuales nosotros hemos justamente acelerado esta parte del acceso abierto. ¿Y qué es lo que encontramos en el último cierre de 2025? Que la UAM publicó el 70% de sus publicaciones indiciadas en Web of Science, ahora son en acceso abierto. Y esto para nosotros como universidad nos trae muy buenos dividendos. ¿Por qué? Porque justamente al tener un acceso abierto, una publicación en acceso abierto, nos garantiza obviamente que cualquier persona lo puede consultar, obviamente por su naturalidad de acceso abierto. Y esto nos trae en promedio que nuestros artículos son 1.6 veces más citados, son 4 veces más descargados y son 2.5 veces más mencionados. La gráfica que tenemos aquí es justamente las citas que ha recibido la universidad durante este mismo periodo de 2021 a 2025, en el cual, pues bueno, el 74% de las citas provienen de revistas que se publicaron en acceso abierto, obviamente. Y pues bueno, al nosotros estar ya obligados por una parte, toda esta presión y los buenos dividendos que hemos tenido con la parte del acceso abierto, desde la biblioteca digital, hace 3 años empezamos a desarrollar esta parte de los acuerdos transformativos. ¿Qué son los acuerdos transformativos? Pues los acuerdos transformativos o Read and Publish, pues justamente lo que buscan es transformar a las antiguas suscripciones que nosotros pagábamos de solo por lectura, por ahora también lectura y publicación, es decir, que nuestra comunidad pueda publicar en acceso abierto sin los costos de APCs que les comentaba yo al inicio de la presentación, en el cual, pues bueno, con el mismo pago que nosotros hacemos desde Biblioteca Digital o por un porcentaje diferente, me estoy refiriendo a 1 o 2 puntos porcentuales en la negociación, nosotros damos la oportunidad a que nuestra comunidad académica, pero también alumnado de posgrado, y también gratamente me gustaría comentarles que también ya estamos inclusive publicando a nivel de licenciatura y en las revistas de alto impacto. Eso es algo, ha sido muy grato que nos hemos descubierto. Bueno, pues lo que estamos buscando es justamente que nuestra comunidad pueda publicar en acceso abierto sin costos de APCs. Y pues bueno, como les comentaba, desde hace 3 años hemos estado desarrollando este programa de acuerdos transformativos, en el cual al día de hoy estamos contemplando 14 editoriales, que son las que tienen en pantalla, con las cuales ya contamos con acuerdos transformativos. Perdón, y que son editoriales reconocidas a nivel mundial. Supongo que ustedes ya las conocen porque se han referido a este tipo de editoriales para consulta o inclusive también para publicación. Concentramos a las 5 editoriales más importantes en el mundo, como es Elsevier, Wiley, Taylor & Francis, Sage y ¿cuál me faltó? Y Springer. También tenemos editoriales muy especializadas en algún área particular de conocimiento, como puede ser la American Chemical Society, Institute of Physics, American Institute of Physics, de Greuter, que bueno, también es multidisciplinaria, pero también va un poquito más encaminada hacia las ciencias sociales, al igual que Cambridge, al igual que Oxford. Entonces, estas son las 14 editoriales con las que ustedes pueden publicar de forma gratuita, salvo Sage, que maneja un modelo diferente de acuerdo transformativo, en el cual no nos da el 100% del APC, sino nos da un descuento del 90%. Entonces, en este caso, ustedes como autores, en lugar de pagar $3,000, únicamente van a pagar 300, que bueno, ya es una cantidad considerable. Si lo traducimos a pesos, no es lo mismo pagar 60,000 pesos a pagar solamente 6,000, ¿no? Muy bien. ¿Cuál es el flujo de trabajo que nosotros les pedimos desde Biblioteca Digital para que puedan hacer uso de los acuerdos transformativos? Es algo muy sencillo. El primer punto, obviamente, es ser parte activa de la comunidad UAM. ¿Y a qué me refiero con esto? Que parece bastante obvio. Hemos nosotros recibido muchas solicitudes por parte de comunidad externa que quiere publicar a través del acuerdo transformativo de la UAM. Sí, exactamente. Ya sea que son personas de otras instituciones que no cuentan con los recursos y se acercan, oye Julio, es que mira, yo pertenezco a tal instituto, pero no tengo los fondos, por favor, ingrésame a tu acuerdo transformativo. No lo podemos hacer porque ese es justamente un acuerdo con diversos candados, que los voy a explicar un poquito más adelante, que solamente aplican para la comunidad UAM. O también hemos recibido solicitudes de exalumnos que trabajan en otras instituciones y que publican, pero desafortunadamente no aplica para ellos. Tienen que ser comunidad activa. Otra parte que les pedimos es que seleccionen a las revistas elegibles en este plan de acuerdos transformativos. En la página que les mostré, ustedes pueden descargar todas las revistas que son elegibles de cada una de las editoriales para los acuerdos transformativos. Importante mencionar que no entran el 100% de las revistas de todas las editoriales, para algunos casos, sino son revistas pues muy específicas. Y digo, tampoco estamos hablando de una cantidad menor. Por ejemplo, para Elsevier estamos manejando cerca de 1,200 revistas en donde ustedes pueden publicar. Entonces, lo que nosotros les sugerimos que revisen cuáles son estas revistas elegibles en nuestra página, que tenemos exprofeso para eso. Después ya ustedes pueden iniciar el proceso editorial ingresando el artículo, justamente lo que acaban de ver ahorita con IEEE. Todo ese proceso editorial que ustedes tienen con cada una de las editoriales, pues ya es muy independiente. Entonces les pedimos que ya ustedes lo trabajen directamente con el editor de cada una de las revistas. Importante, para que nosotros podamos hacer efectivo el acuerdo transformativo, es importante que el autor de correspondencia debe tener afiliación UAM. Entonces ustedes, para solicitar el acuerdo transformativo, deben ser el autor de correspondencia. Otro requisito que también solicitamos es que se deben estar registrados en el censo de profesorado de la Dirección de Apoyo a la Investigación y puedan también tener su ORCID institucional de la UAM. Y pues, por último, obtener obviamente la aceptación del artículo, en el cual pues, sí no tenemos nosotros nada que ver, ya es directamente entre ustedes y el editor de la revista. Muy bien, ¿sí? Hay una diferencia, sí, exactamente con el ORCID, y que justamente el Departamento de Biblioteca Digital nosotros tenemos la licencia institucional, en el cual un ORCID lo puede sacar cualquier persona, vamos y nos registramos. Sin embargo, con el ORCID institucional nosotros garantizamos la afiliación UAM. ¿A qué me refiero con esto? Yo puedo sacar mi ORCID y decir, soy Julio Ibarra y trabajo para el MIT. ¿Quién lo está avalando? Yo, porque yo estoy poniendo esa información. Sin embargo, al ser parte de la afiliación UAM, pues nosotros desde la Rectoría estamos certificando que Julio Ibarra pertenece o trabaja en la Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana. ¿Cómo ustedes pueden solicitar que sean certificados por la universidad? Mandándonos un correo. Al final les voy a poner un correo de la BDUAM en el cual nos dicen, oye, Julio o Saúl, que es la persona que se encarga de esto, ya tengo mi ORCID, por favor necesito que ustedes me lo avalen. Nosotros les enviamos un correo para que ustedes le den clic a un botón, es algo bastante sencillo. ¿Ok? Muy bien. ¿Cuáles son los beneficios de los acuerdos transformativos? Pues obviamente al nosotros ser autor de correspondencia tenemos esa autoría personal, esa autoría principal, perdón, que era algo que nosotros perdíamos mucho con al no tener fondos. Es decir, si nosotros no teníamos los fondos para pagar el APC, ¿qué era lo que hacíamos? Pues bueno, se lo dábamos a algún otro colega de alguna otra institución que participaba en la investigación y pues ellos se quedaban con esta autoría principal. A la hora nosotros tener ya los fondos, pues estamos garantizando que esta autoría principal se quede aquí en la UAM. También estamos trabajando con los acuerdos transformativos únicamente con editoriales de prestigio. Es decir, no con cualquier editorial estamos trabajando esta parte de los acuerdos transformativos y que también va un poquito de la mano con un punto que tenemos más abajo, que es evitar que nuestros autores publiquen con revistas depredadoras. No sé si tienen bien en cuenta lo que es esta parte de las revistas depredadoras, que obviamente son revistas engañosas que lo único que buscan es lucrar con la publicación de nuestros autores. Entonces nosotros, al tener los acuerdos transformativos con estas editoriales que son reconocidas a nivel mundial, pues evitamos que nuestros autores publican en revistas depredadoras, que también es perjudicial para la universidad, porque en muchos de los rankings son puntos en contra. Es decir, dentro de toda la evaluación que hacen los rankings, si detectan que la universidad está publicando en revistas depredadoras, son puntos menos para poder rankear a la universidad. Estamos también tratando de estimular el aumento de la evolución científica, sobre todo en niveles de posgrado, pero como les comentaba, es muy grato comentarles que hemos inclusive aprobado artículos a nivel licenciatura y artículos en los primeros cuartiles. Entonces, estamos haciendo muy buen trabajo. Sí me gustaría comentar esta parte. Estamos también, obviamente, incentivando a cumplir con la legislación mexicana, con toda esta parte de publicar en acceso abierto. Importante también, nosotros al publicar en acceso abierto con los acuerdos transformativos, estamos garantizando que conservamos los derechos de la obra. Entonces ya nosotros lo podemos, estas referencias de nuestros artículos, poderlos en nuestros repositorios, poderlos compartir, porque ya tienen esa naturaleza de abierto. Y creo que uno de los puntos más importantes de los acuerdos transformativos es que podemos ocupar los recursos económicos para la investigación en sí y no para destinarlos a los gastos de publicación con APC. A mí siempre me gusta comentar esta anécdota que yo tuve en UAM Xochimilco. Hace algunos años yo estuve en la biblioteca en UAM Xochimilco y conocí a un investigador que me decía, ¿sabe qué, licenciada? Es que con los recursos que me dan, me alcanza como para hacer la investigación básica, porque nada más, era de química, me acuerdo, me decía, nada más me alcanza para comprar ciertos reactivos, entonces mi investigación se queda como en lo básico, no puedo explorar algo mucho más allá porque no me alcanza para otro tipo de reactivos, porque tengo que considerar también las tarifas para la publicación. Pero bueno, nosotros al ahora tener estos ahorros, ustedes como investigadores ya pueden destinar todos los recursos que les dan sus divisiones académicas o que les da la misma CECITI para la investigación en sí y ya no se estén preocupando con la parte de la publicación, que en muchos casos nosotros hemos también tratado de averiguar desde la Rectoría desde dónde pagaban nuestros autores estos APCs, y realmente ha sido muy variado. En algunas ocasiones nos pagaban las divisiones académicas, en algunas ocasiones se hacía la tradicional cooperación, ¿no?, entre todos los investigadores de, oye, pues yo pongo tanto, o inclusive había un investigador que decía, yo pongo todo porque mi grupo de investigación son mis alumnos de posgrado, entonces yo soy el académico y yo voy a pagar el APC. Entonces sí venían de diversas fuentes y que incluía también el bolsillo de nuestros investigadores. Muy bien, ¿cuáles son algunas de las recomendaciones que nosotros damos para la parte de trabajar con los acuerdos transformativos? Pues obviamente que siempre utilicen la afiliación UAM. Yo sé que algunos de ustedes pueden tener inclusive 2 o 3 afiliaciones porque también trabajan en la UNAM, en el Politécnico, Sinvestab, no sé, pero siempre utilicen la afiliación UAM y también que utilicen su correo electrónico institucional. ¿Por qué el correo electrónico institucional de la UAM? Porque es uno de los filtros que nosotros tenemos con las editoriales para que los puedan reconocer a ustedes como parte de la comunidad UAM. Con todas las editoriales tenemos dado de alta el dominio de correo UAM. No importa si es ask o si es ist, si es soc, con que tengan la terminación UAM.mx ya los reconoce el editor. Importante también que ustedes revisen los cargos ocultos de las revistas, que hay ciertos cargos que no cubren los acuerdos transformativos. ¿A qué me refiero con esto? Si ustedes van a publicar a lo mejor un artículo que tenga imágenes a color o que tenga algún recurso multimedia o algo por el estilo, eso no los cubre los acuerdos transformativos y ya son cargos extra que el editor se los puede cobrar a ustedes. Entonces, nada más para que ustedes revisen y tengan o estén conscientes de esa parte. Y por último, pues bueno, consultar nuestro sitio de acuerdos transformativos de la BIDI UAM, que está dentro de la página de BIDI, en la pestañita, la parte superior que dice acuerdos transformativos, y la página es bidi.uam.mx/acuerdos. Y también si tienen alguna duda o también si quieren enviarnos la parte del ORCID para que los podamos nosotros validar, está nuestro correo electrónico que es bidiuam@correo.uam.mx. ¿De acuerdo? Y pues bueno, nada más por último, me gustaría comentarles, hace unos 3, 4 años también anduve yo por aquí, hace 3 años cuando estábamos echando a andar este proyecto de acuerdos transformativos, y que más o menos di esta misma presentación. Sin embargo, pues ahora sí me gustaría compartirles con ustedes los resultados que hemos tenido en estos 3 años de acuerdos transformativos, en los cuales hemos apoyado un total de 306 artículos de 2023 a 2025, y hemos beneficiado a cerca de 900 autores UAM. Es decir, son 300 artículos, cada uno con su autor de correspondencia, pero obviamente en cada investigación que nosotros tenemos participan muchos autores UAM. Y en total, pues hemos nosotros beneficiado a 900 autores UAM, que pues bueno, ya no han tenido que padecer con esta parte de los pagos APCs. Y hemos generado en estos 3 años un ahorro de más de $1 millón que ya no tuvieron que pagar nuestros investigadores por tarifas editoriales. Del lado derecho nada más tenemos ahí una nota de lo que tenemos al corte al día de hoy, de lo que llevamos en 2026, en el cual en estos 4 meses hemos apoyado a 64 artículos, porque ayer en la noche llegó uno nuevo. Entonces ya hemos apoyado 64 artículos a lo que vamos de 2026 y hemos generado ahorros por $207,000, $210,000 en lo que vamos en este año. Entonces sí es pues benéfico para toda la universidad con toda esta parte de los acuerdos transformativos y pues bueno, toda la parte que hemos ahorrado en cuanto a las tarifas APCs. Bueno, pues no sé si tengan alguna duda con toda esta parte de los acuerdos transformativos, si no, de todas formas, nosotros les reiteramos que puedan consultar nuestra página de acuerdos transformativos, que es bidi.uam.mx/acuerdos, o también si gustan mandarnos un correo a bidiuam@correo.uam.mx o al personal de J. Ibarra M, y con todo gusto los podemos asesorar con esta parte de la elección de revista, o si quieren que los podamos ir guiando un poquito. Que digo, en el sitio de acuerdos transformativos también existen guías para los autores, para cada una de las editoriales, de cómo es el flujo editorial para la publicación. ¿De acuerdo? Muy bien, pues muchísimas gracias. Perfecto, muy bien. Pues muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy con esta jornada.